Good evening, and welcome to the online book launch of The Nightjar on the Arabah, A Childhood from King David's Lands. I'm James Goddard, the author of this little novella, and you can find it at the draft to digital link that I have provided below this video. That will take you to the online outlets where you can purchase it worldwide, either in softcover or as an ebook. And my recommendation would be for you to purchase it in softcover, because that includes maps and graphics that I created for the story. Unfortunately, they did not resolve for the ebook, and so the ebook had to be presented without them. And so the purpose of this brief introduction then is to welcome you to the online launch and to say three brief things about how the novella came to light. The first thing to say is that this is first and foremost a boyhood adventure. It's the story of Aram of Edom. So the Nightjar certainly plays a pivotal role in the narrative, but I won't say more about the Nightjar now. It really is Aram's story. The older Aram, many years, in fact decades, after the events in the story took place, looks back and reflects on his boyhood in the hills of Benjamin and Judah and in the arid wilderness of Judea and the Arabah. And so it's fitting then that an older writer such as myself should try for a first novella to write a boyhood adventure, because it was as a boy myself that I was able to visit Palestine and Israel and explore all the wilderness and countryside landscapes that are described in the story. And so how, you might ask, have I kept the memory of those places and landscapes alive? Well, in those days, I only had a little box camera from my last year at high school. And so in our travels, I collected as many postcards as I could, a whole pile. That was the way we did it in those days, to keep alive and treasure the memories of all the places that we visited. The other way that I have kept alive my memories of that visit was to use resources such as these, as well as online resources. This is Chronicles of the Bible Lands, John Rogerson's A History of the Holy Land, which is full of archaeological treasures and excellent maps, as well as brilliant references into the Bible text. And there are also lovely pictures that have enabled me to vicariously go back to the landscapes that I visited and so enjoyed way back in 1979. And so the first thing then is that this is a memoir of a boyhood. The second thing to say about it is that the story was born in a course that I did in the year 2000 with Eugene Peterson at Regent College in Vancouver, British Columbia. And one of the things that Eugene required of us in that course, which was called The Narrative Life of David, was to look in the Bible text for any of the unnamed characters in David's story, and then to write up our own imaginative backstory of that character, give the character a name, and create a text that would fit hand in glove with Samuel's narrative of David's life, as well as into the broader trajectory of the scriptures as a whole. And so that's how Aram's story was born. As I reflected on the Samuel narrative, I discovered this little Na'ar, which is the Hebrew word for a young lad, whom Saul chose to go with him to search for the donkeys of Kish. And as I put myself into the shoes of young Aram and went on that journey into the hills of Benjamin and Ephraim in search of the donkeys, the story was born. Well, Eugene liked the story, I liked the story, and so I decided to publish it in Under the Green Roof, the student newspaper of Regent College, in 2000. It was published in 7 episodes called The Story of Aram of Eden. And that's how it was born. The story has then lain in my greenhouse file for decades, in fact, and only this year I pulled it out and worked it up into the little novella that you can now find at the link below, purchase and enjoy for yourself. So the second thing then is the story within the story as a way of entering into the glory of the scriptural text as a whole through our imaginations. The third thing to say about this little novella is that I wrote it to be spoken and heard. Much like the scriptures themselves, which were initially transmitted orally and for an audience that was not very literate and which heard them rather than read them. So Aram's story was crafted in order to be read aloud and heard by an audience. And I hope that it is going to be part of an imprint which already exists called Bespoken Books, which I have created for other stories in sequel that I will be writing in response to the story and have started. I'll also be inviting other authors to create oral stories for the Bespoken Books imprint. And so you can watch out for more information about those in this channel. And so my hope is that you will find Aram, buy the story, preferably in the soft cover, and then create an event where you invite friends, invite your family, invite your faith community to a meal where once you've enjoyed one another's company, you listen to a half of the novel or even just a chapter and then meet over a couple of weeks. But it is short enough for you to manage more than 2 or 3 chapters in one sitting. And the idea would be to rekindle that ancient tradition that all of our cultures, wherever we find ourselves in the world, once shared. And that is the tradition of oral telling of sagas. In the evening time, under the stars, at the hearth, or at bedtime with elders before going to sleep, or at an open campfire under the stars. And it's only in those kind of oral listening and hearing of the story that the action really comes to life. And so my hope is that we will together rekindle this tradition in all of our cultures, and that you will really enter into the wonder and the mystery of all the human and also the celestial beings that are part of this wonderful story called the Nightjar on the Arabah, a childhood from King David's lands.